So how about that for a goddamn bounce? Yesterday's Bitcoin video is aging like fine wine, and we've already seen Bitcoin rip back to 105,000, back to its mid-range, just like it did here after completing its C-wave correction before things stalled out on the right side. I was even so bullish yesterday, I went out and made an X account calling for that 98k bottom on BTC, and more importantly that $1.90 bottom on XRP, stating that I'll update this post when Bitcoin reaches 130k and XRP reaches over $8. And what's more important than Bitcoin actually shooting up like this in the last 24 hours is seeing XRP jumping up nearly 14% in the last day and finding support on that black trend line that we had set weeks prior, where we said XRP had found resistance and bounced from this level every single time it had retested, even during the tariff scare, and now simply seeing that same thing play out again. But what's more important than all of this is seeing that XRP dominance actually spiked to the upside, just like in our fractal here from November last year when XRP's price did outperform the market. And now what we're seeing right now is XRP actually starting to outperform in the short term, exactly like it did back in November last year before things got exciting. So lots to jump into today on the XRP price chart. Let's get into it. So the first thing to note here is that we have seen XRP actually complete this ABC correction that we were looking for here. And what's most important about this bounce is not actually the aggression of the bounce, but the fact that XRP's price is now back above this blue trend line and is starting to act on par with the way Litecoin did back in 2017 that we spoke about in earlier videos, where we drew comparison that XRP's price chart today was acting like Litecoin here did in 2017. And then what we can see here is that Litecoin did do a higher time ABC correction and actually poke down below that trend line here before recovering and then shooting to the upside, going for that full 4.236 extension here, which ended up being the last explosive move of Litecoin's price chart after completing a mid-cycle correction similar to the way XRP has acted, in which we've seen XRP actually shoot up to its mid-range correction here and perform similar structures, and now recovering back above that trend line after completing an ABC correction similar to Litecoin, just a bit more dragged out. And now we are back on track to see XRP recover from here and shoot to the upside. On top of that, Bitcoin is also performing exactly like we wanted it to. And it's most likely we're either in a moment like this here for Bitcoin or a moment like this here now, where we should start to see Bitcoin stall out, chill out for a while, and actually come in for a bit of a back test. And then I think in this moment when Bitcoin comes in for a bit of a back test like it did on the right side here, is the moment where XRP's dominance is actually going to underperform, give us those lows that we're looking for, and then after that hopefully we can see fireworks for XRP where we start to see it outperform the same way it did back in November. And for those that weren't here in November, going back and having a look at XRP's price chart, this is the way XRP reacted, where as soon as Bitcoin had broken out, XRP did aggressively shoot to the upside. And as you can see, there are no real moments in here where XRP pulled back. Even these little corrective phases never really had any big pullbacks in them, and XRP's price did keep shooting to the upside until reaching that $2.80 level, which was a 470% increase on the XRP price chart in just the space of 2 to 3 weeks. And I do believe we are going into something like that now, similar on XRP. And Bitcoin is giving us confirming signals, and XRP's dominance is giving us confirming signals, as this moment where the dominance shot up was back in November, where we just seen XRP's price shoot up 570%. And now I do believe we are going into that same phase now that we have completed that final flush on the back of the negative news, which for those who are unaware of the world events happening right now, the negative news was on the back of America bombing Iranian nuclear facilities and then Iran retaliating with some ballistic missiles. However, it looks like the worst of that is behind us now and we can move forward. And I think if you want more confirmation that price is likely to play out as we have described, and you want to attach a news event to that, I think this post here summarizes everything we've spoken about perfectly, in how that the war in the Middle East is most likely coming to an end and there should be a ceasefire in the next 4 hours, which should create a lot less uncertainty in the markets and hopefully give us this point on the right here that we're looking for, which is to see Bitcoin actually shoot back to the top of its B wave here, which is this purple box, which we have drawn out on the left side here, which is for Bitcoin to get back to this top of this B wave, similar to the way it did on the right side, which is this purple box. So after a period of consolidation, similar to the way things played out on the right side here, I do think Bitcoin will move back to these $110,000 levels, and that in a moment like that is when we should see XRP's price actually shoot to the upside, get back to the top of this zone here like XRP's price did in 2017, which for those who weren't around, this price action right here is actually XRP's mid-cycle correction. You can see this is the bear market, the first leg up on the XRP price chart, the mid-cycle correction, and then XRP going on for that final explosive move. This price action right here in the mid-cycle correction is quite similar to the way XRP's price is reacting now. And what you can actually see is at the end of this correction, there was that ABC, which did end up flushing out a lot of people. And then you've seen XRP's price shoot to the upside. So could we start to see price similar to the way it worked out in 2017 for XRP, where it did break out from its mid-cycle correction as it did back here? Or are we going to have to wait till Bitcoin can get to a moment like this here on the right side, which in this zone right here is when we actually seen XRP's price shoot to the upside like it did in November of last year. So now that I believe that the ABC correction is over, guys, I think we are likely to see price action play out similar to how I've sketched out here on the right, which I believe is quite similar to the way things played out in this move. And hopefully that's what we start to see next, because I am very sick of talking about the ABC correction. It's been 30 days of talking about this, and now that time's finally over. I think it's time to start talking about how the structure is going to play out on the move up and how that's going to look like on XRP. And I think if you have a look back to XRP's price from 2017, that it's likely we see some form of ABC correction here on XRP, potentially one more pop up before that ABC correction comes in, and then we can start to see XRP price go push to the upside and expand from there, similar to the 2017 example. And I think that Bitcoin's going to play out like this here on the left side, which is just simply my very ugly sketch from how price played out on the right side here. So moving into this phase of the correction, guys, should be very exciting. Looking forward to talking about it, and then getting to that day that we can start to get excited, start to post the rocket ships on this channel, and that will be when we get back to this breakout zone at the top of the B range, similar to the way it played out on the right side here, and I can finally get rid of this ugly circle I've had drawn on this chart for over 30 days now. So very happy to see a move like this on Bitcoin. Even more happy to see XRP performing like this and actually outperforming the rest of the market the exact same way it did on the XRP dominance chart here. And now it's just a matter of seeing how XRP's price is going to react. Is it going to make its way back to the top of this range and then potentially break out from here like it did back in 2017? Or are we going to have to wait for Bitcoin to get back to this zone on the right side here like it did back in November before we can see XRP's price actually shoot to the upside? And I think we're going to find out the answer to those questions in the next coming weeks. So it should be a very exciting July here, and I'm very confident that the worst is behind us, and what's likely play out now is to see Bitcoin chop around like it did on the right side here before it can make its way back to the top of this B leg. So that would look like some chop in this zone here, maybe even a bit of a pullback, and then we can see Bitcoin move back to the top of that B leg and then break out. And I think in this moment right here is where we should start to see XRP act like the way it did back in 2017, where it did shoot to the upside quite aggressively, quite fast after ABC correcting at the end of this mid-cycle correction, which again is very similar to the way Litecoin here reacted back in 2017 after its mid-cycle correction, and then did shoot back to the upside and go on to complete a full 4.236 extension, which if we have a look at these levels on XRP's price chart today, using the same measurement that we used to measure Litecoin, taking the top of the corrective move to the bottom of the corrective move, we should see XRP, if it continues to play out the way that Litecoin have, reach those $8 to $9 levels here. And I think this is what we are in store for next on XRP. And then I think that this move is going to happen very fast, the same way it did in 2017, the same way XRP's price actually reacted back in November here, during this time where it only took 3 weeks to shoot up over 500%. And if XRP does shoot up over 500% over the next 3 weeks, that should again take us to that same $8 to $9 region, marking what I believe should be the end of the cycle, not just for XRP, but for the majority of the cryptocurrency market. So I hope everyone's excited out there. I hope everyone's very happy with the way the price has bounced, and I'll be back on Friday to update today's video on XRP and the Bitcoin video from yesterday in Friday's weekly recap, and we'll go over what we're seeing, how things are playing out, and just how much closer we are before things can break out and get really exciting here in the crypto market. So if you're new here, feel free to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, it helps a lot. If you have any questions, comment them down in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys back on Friday for the weekly recap. Have a good rest of your week.